Welcome back. Abortion is set to play a key role in these midterm elections. After the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, voters in 5 states will now get the chance to weigh in on the matter. In Michigan, a proposed amendment would create a right to, quote, reproductive freedom, allowing women the option to choose an abortion. On the California ballot, an amendment making abortion a fundamental right. Vermont has a similar measure. In Montana, voters will decide whether infants who survive an abortion would be given status as legal persons. Meanwhile, in Kentucky, where abortion is already banned, a measure would ensure the state constitution does not protect the right to an abortion.
Well, joining us now is Timothy Head, Executive Director of the Faith and Freedom Coalition. Tim, thanks for joining us. As Caitlin just mentioned, abortion is literally on the ballot this year in a way that we haven't seen in nearly 50 years as a result of the Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. You have some pro-life, some pro-choice. Tim, what's your sense of which way some of these ballot measures will go?
Well, thanks for having me on, and I think this is an important topic for us to be talking about in 2022, and frankly, probably as we move forward. So I suspect in Montana and Kentucky that we probably will see favorable results in those 2 states over these kind of restrictions around abortions or abortion rights. And then I think also probably in California and Vermont, those are expansions of abortion-related rights. You know, your viewers will not be surprised to hear that California and Vermont want few, if any, restrictions. The Michigan one, I think, is the one that's probably the most kind of up in the air or closest. And I think that also is going to be affected by the Michigan governor's race there.
How much has the overturning of Roe contributed to voter enthusiasm on either side of this issue in some of the key House and Senate races?
Well, you know, it's to be honest with you, it's a bit of a 6-1, half dozen the other. I would say both sides have become very animated. So immediately what we saw following the Dobbs decision being handed down in late June was the political left was very animated and mobilized and throughout the summer and early fall. But a lot of conservatives and pro-life voters kind of took family breaks and thought about, you know, starting school back up in September. But we've seen a significant uptick in those pro-life voters becoming very animated and mobilized in late September and October. So I'd say at this time they're very similar kind of equivalent impacts across the country, and truly this has become kind of front of mind. You know, the economy, crime and safety, and then the life question are probably the 3 most animating issues right now.
Tim, I think a lot of us were surprised by the August results in Kansas when this issue was put to voters. A lot of people thought Ruby Red Kansas would deliver a different outcome than we saw. From that, you have President Biden and Democratic candidates on the campaign trail vowing to codify Roe into law to legalize abortion. How likely is that to happen if Democrats, which is probably historically not going to be the case, but if Democrats are able to hold on to power in both the House and the Senate?
Well, I think, first of all, you're right. That's probably a bit of a moot point based on at least how the House is likely to go and probably the Senate. But I think the question is a fair one and a good one. And honestly, I would say not very likely is the short answer. I think that as the Supreme Court has kicked this down to state levels, there's not much appetite. There's very questionable appetite even among a lot of moderate Democrats for this to be a federal issue. And more and more states are really becoming a lot of left-leaning states are supporting this, and a lot of right-leaning states want to restrict it. And I think it really is best to be left to these states at this point.
Tim Head, Executive Director of Faith and Freedom Coalition, thank you so much for your time and your insights.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you so much for having me. God bless.